Good afternoon, everybody. So nice to see you all. Thank you for coming today. We're celebrating together this UN International Day of Families. And how wonderful that I see some families in the audience. They're really beautiful. So today, I think it's a bit of applied psychology going on here because you start with the lecture bit, which is me, and it's kind of back to school, and but all the fun stuff comes later, right? So you'll feel really elated by the time that you go home. So thank you for giving up your Saturday afternoons, which are very precious, aren't they? Right? Really have to think what to do on a Saturday afternoon, and you chose to come here, so that's very meaningful. I've entitled my little talk here, A Blessing for the World. And we're talking about this blessing movement and blessed family movement, which is really taking place in so many countries around the world. It's a growing phenomenon, and we want to introduce that to you and encourage you to be very much part of it. Also, we'll be sharing and inviting you to participate in this very simple marriage blessing for those of you who are married. And thereby we're really celebrating and being involved. And I know some of you have come from, there's a little town, a little city, a little bit north of here called Birmingham. Anybody from Birmingham? Whoa, amazing, right? And even we have somebody from Sydney, Australia here. I think probably you've come the furthest, Dr. Wally, right? He'll be talking to us later, right? So, wow. Just relax and enjoy, everybody. It's a wonderful way to get together and to think about these important things. Well, I've got some pictures for you, so I want your help to identify some weddings of different faiths, and this is good for the children especially, if you can contribute. What do you think this is? What kind of wedding? Jewish wedding taking place under the chuppah is kind of symbolic of the marital home and beautiful ceremony and various parts to it which have a lot of meaning. You'll find these wedding ceremonies, they have lots of symbolism in various aspects and very beautiful, long-standing traditions. And how about this one, would you say? Indian, certainly Indian. Faith is maybe not so clear, but this could be a Muslim couple in prayer, or I've got another, I think from Indonesia, young, married, maybe just married, I think, and they're out for a walk to take some pictures. It's rather lovely, isn't it? Eh? So, and here from Hindu culture, we have very elaborate weddings, right? Anybody used to that or been to a Hindu wedding? Then that's quite amazing. My son was just there. He has a friend from college days in India who invited my son, younger son and wife, to India for the wedding of his sister. I think he's quite wealthy, actually. I'm sorry. So he paid for their trip, and the first thing they had to do was to be fitted for 7 sets of clothing each, because they were going to need this at various points along the few days, right? Quite extraordinary. And, they didn't know really what was happening to them. But hey, that's because it's important, right? And if you can do it, that's wonderful. So here's the bride coming in a Hindu wedding, and there are various traditions about taking 7 steps and symbolizing 7 promises, and beautiful traditions here, husband and wife. Their scarves tied together in a knot, so tying the knot there and becoming, all symbolism of how we want to really stay united together. And it's like these 2 families coming together to be one, which is quite a challenge. Also, I had very beautiful memories of a Sikh wedding. couple really showing devotion to God first of all, to Waheguru and to the Adi Granth Sahib, and conducting the ceremony in front of that holy place. Very beautiful support with chanting and lots of merriment as well. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to include everybody's religious tradition, right? So you have to excuse me. I just chosen a few, right? So if yours is not there, don't worry. But send me some good pictures and I'll get them in next time, right? Here's an Orthodox church wedding. And you'll see that their husband and wife, or bride and groom, are sharing a cup of wine. That's an interesting thing. We'll be doing something similar with some non-alcoholic, we say nectar, later on. But look what's over their heads. Do you see that, children? Some crowns. So for this day at least, they're like king and queen. What a beautiful notion, right? And there they are. That's the kind of royal kind of blessing, a blessing of God on husband and wife as king and queen, and coming together to start their married life in that way. And here's a more traditional Christian wedding, I think probably American Baptist wedding, I'm not sure, but I'm not too worried with these. Just let's enjoy the beautiful photos and the way in which people do things, very similar things, but also in their own different way, different cultural nuances and practices, but it's all for the same wonderful purpose, and that's what we're here to celebrate today. So why I start by showing you these is that it really is that the world-level religious traditions, these are very ancient sources of wisdom for us and guidance for family life and for society. They are upholding marriage, and they're emphasizing two things. One is purity before marriage. I'm going to devote my love to that person who is my eternal partner when that person comes along. And fidelity in marriage. That means I'm going to make a vow to stay together. And in the Christian service, it talks about for better or worse, for richer or poorer, it's we don't know what's going to happen in life, right? But it's like saying in a very beautiful way, we're saying we're in this together, right? And if one person is sick, well, I'll look after that person and go forward that way together. So they all uphold the value of marriage in our society, and they're supporting the young couple at the center of these traditions in a way of coming together, and that's like lineages coming together. So two families or family lines marrying, and that's, that has its challenges, right? I was in a family wedding in Korea. As Robin said, my wife is from Korea. So my wife's sister's son was getting married. And I was surprised. When you went into the hotel, it all took place in a hotel, actually, around round tables. And the bride's family was all over this side, and the groom's family all over this side. And they never spoke to each other, because it was felt it's best if we keep them apart. It's the safest. Sorry, I could say that because my wife isn't here. So I'm getting away with it, right? But no, this is a coming together of families, and very, very meaningful. So marriage lays a foundation, we can say, for the family, and which is like in a home or a sacred space, a domestic sacred space, you can say, headed by nuptial priests. And these become the parents when they receive the gift of a child. So please understand, in the things which I'm saying now and going to be saying in the rest of my talk, I acknowledge that the ideal of marriage and family, as I'm expressing it, it's not possible for everyone. Right? And it may not even apply to you. Some people make different choices, and for some people, life just works out differently, right? So please understand, I'm talking about some kind of notion of revisiting the kind of original value of marriage and family and thinking about that again in our modern context and thinking how worthwhile and valuable it will be given its International Day of Families. So the importance here, I think, is that we reevaluate this meaning and value of marriage and family in a society which, from a lot of the things that you see and hear about, seems very eager to reject these traditions. And it's interesting here through these references which we had in picture form that there's a common approach in the world's religious traditions. And that has been feeding into our society and the stability of our various societies. So we should be thankful for that, I believe, right? So when we look at what we call in UPF our principles of peace, or in the Family Federation, we sometimes call these the three great blessings, we see that God had a plan for our first human ancestors, like for human beings. This is really the kind of original ideal, is that an individual can become spiritually mature or perfect, a person of true love in whom the Spirit of God is dwelling, and then such a man and such a woman can marry together under God's blessing and inherit the true love of God. And then from that family extend it out through the next generation and subsequent generations. How wonderful this is, kind of developing one lineage. So when we say like one family under God as being a goal, really that should have been our original path as human beings. Did you ever think about that? Yes, if something hadn't gone wrong, we would be one family and we would be united in that expression of love. And then the third circle there, one on the right, indicates our kind of relationship between people and all the rest of creation, the things in this world, which we need to use effectively and responsibly for the good of everybody. This is engaging with our environment and in a good way dominating the natural world and through science and technology and other things. So it's a world where human beings and nature are really in harmony. I'm going to look particularly at the middle one here, right? Because that's marriage and family. And that in our UPF standard kind of principles that we are sharing, we call that a foundation for lasting peace and happiness and peace in human society. It's related to the family, and that's a very important aspect of UPF, connecting the family with the goal and the notion of world peace, and saying really we can't have world peace without such a revival of marriage and family and putting that in its proper place. So that's why I'm exploring this little idea today. So I'm saying God here, but if somebody's not comfortable with that, we can call it like coming together, centering on a higher purpose, or even kind of shared values, important higher values, which we agree upon. And then husband and wife united around that, or through their life of faith, according to whatever tradition they are in, can unite together and become an image of God in this way. So God is the origin of the masculine and origin of the feminine. Everything comes from God in that sense, or from the Creator. And then when husband and wife relate together in love and develop and create that bond, they become one and a more substantial image of God than just husband on his own or wife on her own. This is the idea which is emphasized. But not only that, when they have children, of course, that's the magic moment when they become parents, right? You can't be a parent without that. So When that blessing comes, then the family becomes this beautiful unit in which kind of 12 different relationships are operating. Even if there's just one child, there are 12 different relationships, and they have different qualities to them as well. So parents love their children with a certain quality of love, and husband and wife have, and wife for husband, husband for wife have their qualities of love as well. And that's a more exclusive love, which is just for them. So love takes different forms in this way, but it's all part of this ideal of true love, which should be multiplied, actually, out into society and into the nation and eventually into the world. So this is why we say that the family is like the building block of that ideal which we're seeking to reach. In certain religious traditions, you might call it the kingdom of heaven or some other expression. What is that ideal world? Well, the fundamental building block is this family unit. Are you with me?
Yes.
Whoa, right? So that's why it's important, even if it doesn't match like my own experience identically, but it's still important to realize that is fundamental for the human journey. The family is the building block. And as I said, in this unit are four great loves. They're experienced and they're learnt within the family. The first is children's love of parents. You're growing up to experience this expanding range of relationships and things that you can do and things that you can learn from those parents in your life become very, very important to you. And there's siblings' love. When you have a brother or sister, elder or younger, then this is learning something else about how to relate to people and to your peers and to those who are slightly older or younger than yourself. And there's also this idea of spouses' love and also parents' love. So Father Moon, our founder, both of Universal Peace Federation and of the Family Federation for World Peace, which is kind of also jointly running this program today, he called these the four great realms of heart. Isn't that beautiful? I like that expression. And he also talked about the three great kingships. What could that mean in the family? Kingships. It takes me back to that picture of the Orthodox wedding, actually, right? It's saying that everybody in the family is like royal family. That means the kingships are grandparent, parent, and children. Kingships, right? And that means queenships as well, right? So that's a very beautiful idea. Here is a quote from our founder. He said, "In the family, there are four levels: grandfather and grandmother, father and mother, you and your spouse, and your sons and daughters." Again, not every family has that, right? But you understand my kind of going this direction. The world is the extension of these relationships. Thus, you need to love the people of the world whose ages are similar to the people in your family in the same way you love your family members. So you really love your grandmother and has a special relationship with the grandparents. That means as you've grown up and now you're leaving the kind of nest of the family home, you're going into the wider world, maybe seeking employment or at university or something, and you come across an elderly person on your travels, elderly man, elderly woman. Treat them as if they were your grandfather or your grandmother. Have that level of respect and love. They're probably somebody's grandmother or grandfather, right? But this simple way of kind of extending a heart of true love is a potential to end so many social problems and social difficulties, isn't it, right?
Yes.
So this is why in both Family Federation and Universal Peace Federation, we come down often back to talking about love and its qualities, right? And with no shame, right? I'm going to talk a lot about love from now on, right? So where do we learn what I'm calling true love? And I'll define that a little bit further down as we do these. So where do we learn true love? Well, we've already had that indication. It's from our parents. They're like our first teachers. And the family we can call the school of love. It's where we get nurtured in terms of heart and character. And it's a primary training ground for the relationships which we're going to have to develop and sustain in our future life. So this is where we're learning, and it's a very safe place to learn, right? We can make mistakes, and we're still loved, and we feel that love, and we get good guidance on the spot, and we get a good example, ideally, right? We get a good example from those around us, and that is really better than any teaching by words or by lecture or diagrams or all the things I'm doing today, right? Example is the best, and that's the idea of the family as a school of love. And where do we learn this love? It's in relating to brothers and sisters, and as we said, to parents and grandparents as well, those three great kingships. And the family becomes then the school for morality, the basis of norms in society, how I'm going to behave and how I'm going to properly conduct myself. And parents are making effort to pass this on. I'm sure everybody in the room who's a parent is doing that or has done that, right? And even if you're in a kind of surrogate parent way, maybe you're a teacher who's in loco parentis, right? Still, you should have that heart and mind to care and love for those under your tutelage. So this is a wonderful kind of means. And I'm not sure when or where to say that, but maybe I'll say it now. The family is not a kind of social construct that you can just accept or reject, right? It's not a kind of idea whose time has passed and we're on to trying some new modern things, right? No, it goes back to the very beginning. This is part of our humanity, actually. And it's extremely important for that reason. And some people say, it's a nice expression, it's the only institution ordained by God, right? So nothing else is in that category. So where do we learn true, genuine love? It's as husband and wife, and as that relationship grows and develops, we see God in our partner, in the other. And it's often things which surprise me. I have a little expression that true love always surprises, right? It has that kind of notion to it. Maybe your partner or your wife or husband does something for you, and it really surprises you. You think, oh, you did that for me? I never expected that, right? Oh, where did that come from? And, it lifts you out from wherever you are, whatever space you're in. It's just kind of so touching and so wonderful, right? And it can continually do that, actually, when we're exercising true love. And a couple that's loving each other in this way become an image of the Creator. They're living for each other and the family and the wider world, and they become a model of this thing we're calling true love to their children. And then such a strong family, where it can go through this process, should also have a focus that is higher than itself. To be honest, sometimes if your own family is just your goal and your purpose for existence, then that's a kind of self-centered boundary, isn't it? We're not going beyond that. So part of what parents need to teach their children is going beyond the family and showing that actually we're here to be part of a wider community, to help others, to live, as we say, for the sake of others, to have some altruistic purpose in serving the community. So strong families should have a focus just higher than themselves. It's a big ask, of course, because, sometimes just making it through and existing is difficult, right? And we have lots of challenges in life, totally understand that. But still, this kind of mind and this heart is something that we can convey to the next generation. Is life, I'm painting quite a rosy picture here, right, of marriage and family. But Father Moon said, and I have a little quotation from 1995 speech called Religion and the Ideal World. He said, "What is the reality of our world today? Disorder and sickness of every kind, including war, violence, and drug abuse, have infected humankind. More importantly, the rapid collapse of sexual morality among the young, the increasing divorce rate, the breakdown of the family are all destroying the foundation of human society. All these things originate from what he calls the fall, in line with many other religious traditions, or something that went wrong in the beginning in our fundamental starting out as a human family. So we have to go back to that and we have to correct it, right? So this is the reality of the human condition. And if you can remember those three circles which I showed you before, that kind of individual, family, and relationship to the rest of the environment, well, it's a similar pattern has evolved, but centering more on evil influences. And we haven't put God at the center, or that true love at the center. So we have a tradition whereby spiritually immature people of kind of self-centered love, yes, they grow physically to an age when they want to marry, but they bring that immature self into the marriage environment. Whether it's realized in the beginning or not, it's there. And therefore, their kind of personal problems pass into the marriage and family relationships, and that's the seeds of some kind of difficulties later on. Does that make sense? We haven't always emphasized the kind of importance of really preparing yourself for this great kind of transition from living as an individual and living well as an individual, but then going on to the next stage of sharing that, losing some of my individuality in exchange for something much greater, to be part of this greater whole and to raise a family. And so also we see that that means greed and self-interest have dominated our kind of relationship with the environment and the creation, and we've engaged in a lot of abuse of the world in that way and created imbalance and a lack of harmony. So that's the things that we're trying to address. People from different angles are trying to address it through their politics or ideology or efforts or charitable ventures or all kinds of things. Here, in terms of ideas, this movement is trying to go back to the origin and bring something very important, God's blessing, back to not only ourselves as individuals, but ourselves as couples and our families. So there was another speech from our founder, which I won't read it this time, but he starts by asking a question. He said, which is easier, to create a new apple? Is it easier to create a new apple or to take a rotten apple and make it whole again? Now, that's an interesting question, isn't it, right? I'll leave you to ponder that, right? Because actually, making a new apple is very difficult. I don't know anybody who can do that, really, from scratch. I think it was an old Carl Sagan quote, right? In response to the question, how do you make an apple pie? And he said, well, first start with the universe, right? Because without that, you're not going to be able to do it, right? So, but Father Moon here was saying, yes, creating is a miracle. It's a beautiful, miraculous world out there, including apples on trees, right? Which we can enjoy. But nature goes a certain way. There's nothing in nature whereby, a rotten apple that's on the ground already can be made whole again. It just doesn't work like that. But the situation for humankind, if we think of the Creator's point of view, is there's something rotten at our core, but it's not easy to solve that, actually. And that has been the kind of life work, really, of Father and Mother Moon, and lies a kind of deeper reason behind the tradition of blessing and blessing of marriages, as we're talking about it. When they describe this blessing of marriage, they use a metaphor, which is that of grafting. Anybody good with fruit trees here? You develop your own fruit trees, right? So you don't, as you know, plant new trees from seed. You revert to some early ancestor of the apple that you were enjoying, for example, if it's an apple tree. Rather, what is very common is you take a tree that's not producing very good fruit. Nobody wants to eat it, but it's got a good trunk and a good root system. And then you cut it off. It's quite brutal, isn't it? You cut it off, and then you make this splice, and you put into it these two scions, as we call them. So you have a rootstock, and you implant or engraft two scions, which are little cuttings from a tree which produces good fruit. And taking those little cuttings isn't going to damage the tree, right? You can easily give up those, right? But you pop them in, and this is the quickest way, when it's bound and watered and grows, to produce good fruit on a solid basis, right? And when that good fruit comes, nobody says, "Oh, I'm not going to eat that. Once it was a tree that produced bad fruit, right? I don't want to have that one." No, you forget about that, right? So this is how he is using a kind of metaphor to express and develop our metaphors on the kind of salvation process, or how to put things right that are wrong in the world. It's difficult, right? No surprise to us working in UPF. Putting things right is very difficult, but we do have to go back to the origin. So I've talked a bit about true love. Is an expression that comes from Father and Mother Moon. They talk about true love, but what does that mean? It's not a kind of Disney type of, prince and princess, no, it's really something we have to think about very seriously and practically. True, genuine love. Certainly Father Moon, I think, talked about it more than any other human being. And one definition of that, coming from his speeches, it's a deep and selfless love that seeks the well-being and happiness of others above oneself. That is seen as a divine and transformative force that has the power to heal relationships, communities, and the world at large. This is true love, right? I introduce it to you, right? I'm sure you know it already, right? But that's the importance of this thing I'm calling true love. And another expression of that, it comes from an American psychologist, this is Greg Bear, says, unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. True, genuine love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. And from Scott Peck, who's again, American psychologist, said, true, genuine love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Yeah, that takes some thinking about, but it covers more situations, perhaps, than some of the other definitions. Right? So that's true love. But what are we often dealing with in this world? And what is more like the kind of tradition which has been passed on? Unfortunately, despite people's best efforts, it's often something which we would call conditional love, or false or even imitation love. It's not the real thing. That is always has some element to it, which is like, I care how you make me feel. It's all kind of coming back to me. This is, again, from Greg Bear's interesting person. And I was quite struck when I read his book because I felt very judged, right? I felt very judged because he said, do you ever feel irritated? Oh, no, never feel irritated, right? Nobody ever irritates me. Anybody get that problem? Of course, yes, we feel irritated by somebody. And he said, well, irritation is just a very kind of lesser form of anger, and that means you're not exercising true love yourself. You feel irritated, in a way it's your fault, right? Because you're not loving the other person with a heart of true love that cares about their happiness. You might have to go to them and correct them and express, what it is that they're doing wrong, which can be an irritation to people, but that's a loving way to deal with it. Just to kind of feel irritated and then go and tell somebody else about how irritating that person is, and, I don't want to work with that person, and this, and you multiply. No, that's not the way to do it, right? That's a kind of false response. Other people are thinking about this. I'm going to throw in a quotation here from Eckhart Tolle. Anybody come across Eckhart Tolle in your reading? Interesting person. And he writes here, what is commonly called falling in love is in most cases, not every case. Personally, I think when my parents fell in love, they did exactly the right thing, right? And I'm so grateful that they did. But, and I'm sure it's very beautiful. But often in the kind of world of romantic, so-called romantic relationships, or sometimes serial relationships, right? Called falling in love is, in most cases, he says, an intensification of self-centered wanting and needing. You become addicted to another person, or rather to your image of that person. It has nothing to do with true love, which contains no wanting whatsoever. Well, an interesting thought. People looking at kind of what is the root of this problem. Our society is rejecting traditional moral values at a pace and becoming more materialistic and seeking pleasure just for the self. If we do that, it's a path that leads ultimately to destruction and doesn't lead to the happiness that we're seeking. That's the irony about it. Anyhow, let's talk about Margaret Ali's favorite topic. Living for others, right? Here's a biblical quotation from the Gospel of Luke. Whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will preserve it or gain it. A little bit of a kind of teaser there in this quotation. It means, if you're just trying to cling on to your life for your happiness, it's going to wither away and come to nothing. But if you're giving, love is the only thing which you give, and it never diminishes, right? It returns in abundance. Or here in the Holy Quran, it says, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself. It's the expectation shouldn't be there. It's just kind of without any agenda. I'm doing this for the other person. How beautiful is that as a concept and a maxim to live by? Or in Hinduism, from the Bhagavad Gita, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. Ooh. And Sikhism, again, I apologize, I can't do something from every tradition, right? So if yours is not here, please understand. Sikhism, what is that love which is based on greed? When there is greed, the love is false. That's the false love, right? So people have arrived at this conclusion a long time ago. As they say, sometimes nothing in religion is new, right? Because these deep truths have been shared in the wisdom of the ages, but we still can forget them and neglect them, so we need to be reminded. Our founders, Father and Mother Moon, they started their ministry, of course, in very humble circumstances in South Korea. It was recently out of a desperate war situation and became a divided country between the communist North and the democratic South. And in the midst of that, they instituted this peace blessing, this marriage blessing amongst their followers or disciples, and the World Peace Blessing movement really started there with their own wedding in 1960. There were at the same time 36 couples blessed from those who were following and learning from their teaching and devoting their lives into this particular path. So that's already quite an achievement by that time to have that kind of following. But then some were married couples, so they received the blessing. Some were single individuals, and they were found the most suitable partner, which is wonderful. And all received the blessing. This is one group of 12, but there were 3 lots of 12 couples. That expanded. What year were we there? 1960? By 1992, we have this one, which is 30,000 couples in the Olympic Stadium in Seoul, Korea. It was built for the Olympics in '88, right? And included many couples around the world by satellite as well in different countries. So yes, if you see those little white dots, those are women in wedding dresses. And the black dots are men in either black or blue suits. And that's quite something, isn't it? People receiving a blessing on their marriage and renewal of their vows. For many people, it was their wedding day. They had waited for this wedding day to join with others and celebrate together to make a public demonstration to uphold this importance of family and marriage. So wonderful. And this was officiated, of course, by, Father and Mother Moon, but also by co-officiators from the world's religions, from Buddhism, from Sikhism, Islam, Native American, Hindu, Christian. They're adding their blessing and their prayer to all these couples. Isn't that beautiful? Very. And people coming from different religious traditions. So Father Moon had such ambition in this, as does Mother Moon. She has an ambition to bring this blessing to at least, wait for it, 1/3 of the world's population, right? Ideally everybody, but if we could do 1/3, then that's going to make an impact, isn't it? So you're part of that today, actually, right? So here is one which, a blessing ceremony, which took place in the United Nations building in New York. Now, that should have no religious ceremony, so don't pass it out of this room, right? They don't allow any religious ceremony. So, we want brides and grooms there, so what did Father Moon suggest? He said, let them all come in their national costume, right? And they were from many different nations, so how beautiful. They are there and all dressed up in their national costumes. I don't know what the British would do for that. We're a bit stuck, aren't we? Morris dancing or something? Anyway, here's another one, the beautiful blessing in the campus of Sun Moon University, and involving many ambassadors for peace from UPF, and also to renew their wedding vows. Here's a couple from Sweden, already interracial couple, so it's very beautiful. And these, there's a notoriety behind these so-called mass weddings or large weddings, isn't it? There's a beautiful experience when you go there. My own was in Madison Square Garden, in New York, 2,075 couples. Amazing. And I thought I would just be lost in the crowd, but it was extremely personal and profound experience, actually, and beautiful to share with others. Here's Mother Moon, since Father Moon's passing, still continuing this tradition apace, really. And this is in the largest football stadium in Johannesburg in South Africa, right? with couples coming forward to receive this blessing. So finally, I just want to take the last few minutes to talk about the blessing ceremony. And then we're going to invite you to participate in a kind of reduced kind of version of that. So today can be experiential as well as just me nattering away from the podium, right? It's much better, right? So the blessing ceremony has certain, preparedness, especially couples who are making this their wedding day. And we can think of these two large groups, those for whom it is their marriage and their wedding, and those who, and they've been preparing a long time for that, and those who are seeking to renew their wedding vows from whatever tradition they come, and it can be a chance to do that. And many people, as you know, in different ceremonies are choosing to do that in various traditions. And I think it's a very worthy thing just to remember what we have in terms of blessings. So certain conditions are expected, a determination to respect one's spouse, certainly, and keeping one's love pure, a determination of husband and wife to be faithful to each other, that's renewing that commitment, and a heart to become a true parent as well, to have that heart of love, not only to your own children, but to others, and a heart for living for the sake of others. And there are certain components to the major blessing ceremonies. Like I say, not everyone we'll do today, or we'll do in a kind of symbolic way, maybe. The first is, we say, the Holy Nectar ceremony, which is symbolizing kind of coming back to God's lineage, God's family. And that is kind of by becoming one in terms of changing one's false lineage to a true lineage. This kind of idea is a very beautiful idea, and for husband and wife includes sharing a cup of juice together, right? So half and half, and then thereby kind of renewing that bond. There's also a little ceremony to dissolve historical resentment, and our Pastor William Haynes will lead us through this, actually, and explain this probably more than I can do. So this is there to symbolically heal past resentments. Even if I don't have it with my wife or husband or between us, still you can be sure that somewhere, a little way back in our ancestry, there are people husbands who mistreated their wives, or maybe vice versa. It's going to be that way, isn't it, right? And no lineage is entirely free of those problems. So it's like saying, well, all that stops now with me or with our relationship. We make a break, we put that behind us, and we'll never use violence or these kind of ways of hurting people, even just through words. The blessing ceremony itself, which is more than we can provide here today, but it's a very joyous, very beautiful thing. You see all the streamers and balloons coming down, and now it's a very lively and spirit-filled and music-filled event if you go to one of these. In the ceremony itself, there's a purification aspect of sprinkling with holy water, of reciting the wedding vows together, and exchanging rings. I don't think we'll be doing that today, but no, again, for a couple, it's very meaningful if it's their marriage. If it's renewing vows, you can take off the ring and then give it back to your wife or give it back to your husband and saying, it's like all over again. I'm marrying you, right? And there's a blessing prayer as well, which is, God's blessing coming down on that. Today, we'll ask you to say a couple of blessing vows. And, people are joining today who are single, some because they're young and some because they're single, they're not married, or they're not here with their spouse. They're different things, different situations. But if you're single, and everybody, whether single or married, can say, and I hope you'll agree to this, I promise to do my utmost to develop a heart of true unconditional love and to live in harmony with the highest ideals, values, and virtues of my own faith tradition. Give you a little time to think about that. And then to all who are here as couples, or if you're married but your spouse is not here, as a couple we promise to be eternally faithful to one another, to raise any children entrusted to our care to be people of integrity, and to extend heaven's blessing to our community and nation, contributing to the creation of a peaceful world united as one family under God's love. And then for those who are involved in the serious blessing process, especially if it's their marriage, then invited to participate in a 40-day separation period, which is very interesting. So it's not just the ceremony itself, but it's really renewing our love and making our love for God paramount and our love for each other then very sacrosanct and beautiful and holy. So this is where husband and wife put God first and live, for that time as brother and sister. And then there's a 3-day ceremony at the end of that time to renew their love relationship as husband and wife. And, that's for anybody who's interested. You can ask about that. So it's really the people that I've led through this process have all had profound experience of coming to totally renew their love and their relationship as husband and wife, or to bond together as a husband and wife if it's their wedding. And it's very profound. So it's over time, and it's just a beginning. And based on that is a whole tradition. We call it the blessed family tradition, really. And that means establishing faith in a very workable, realistic way in the home. If you're not doing that already, many of you, I'm sure, are doing that. And I just encourage you to keep going. So it's faith, home-based kind of faith. You may then, of course, be involved with your local faith community or gurdwara or mosque or a church or whatever you're going to. And we have also blessed family associations. So to keep kind of, especially from these larger blessings, it's like an alumni of those blessings. And we can keep in touch and celebrate that day together and do something. So that's very meaningful. We also have courses on marriage preparation, especially for young people. That's also something which just isn't provided in schools or anywhere else. And we have workshops for children to help them develop good brother-sister relationships as a foundation for being responsible adults, and supporting couples in family life, various programs and initiatives which some people are very much involved with, like our distinguished brother here. This is Stephen Stacey. I think he is very much involved in that kind of education work as an author and educator, and contributing to public life, encouraging that aspect of going beyond the family. And therefore, this blessing tradition can multiply way beyond just the occasion of receiving that blessing to be a way of life and something where we can really dwell together with God and to be a source of true love for others. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end there and conclude my talk. Thank you. God bless you.